Hi, my name is Elaine Foster, and I was banned from my own family's yacht trip and not forgotten and not overlooked. Banned. By my husband's sister, Vanessa Ellison, the kind of woman who smiles sweetly over brunch and ends every email with a heart, and still managed to erase me from the guest list without saying a single word. She replaced me with her mindfulness coach. Said she was like family. But when the crew turned, looked me in the eye and said, "Welcome aboard, Miss Elaine. The owner has arrived. You should have seen the way her face fell. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe." My plan. It's only just beginning. Because this isn't about revenge, it's about finally and fully being seen. That morning started like most others. Coffee in the same ceramic mug I'd had for years, the one with a thin crack near the handle. Graham had already left for the office, leaving behind the usual chaos: a damp towel on the bedpost, half a banana going soft on the kitchen counter, and the lingering scent of his aftershave still floating in the hallway. I wasn't in a rush. I was rarely these days. My work was remote, and my time was mine. I scrolled through my phone with the kind of half-focus that comes after a lifetime of checking things that don't matter. And then it stopped me. A boomerang. Champagne glasses clinking golden light open water in the background. And the caption, "Ellison Family Getaway Loading." Can't wait to sail, I stared. Not because I didn't recognize it. Quite the opposite. That yacht, the one they were toasting on, I bought it. Quietly. Without fanfare. 5 years ago. It was mine. I didn't post about it. I didn't name it after myself. I just signed the check. Because after years of building a company from scratch, turning sleepless nights into contracts and rejection into revenue, I wanted something real, something that moved forward no matter what, something that didn't ask for permission. I tapped into the photo, zoomed in. Vanessa in her white linen jumpsuit was already holding court, her husband Lucas at her side grinning like this was a tradition passed down for generations. Their twin daughters identical in sundresses and entitlement. Margaret, my mother-in-law, was holding a mimosa with her pinky out like she was born with it. Even Chloe, the yoga instructor who once asked me if I was Graham's assistant, was there, laughing, toasting, relaxing on the deck I paid for. And I wasn't. I double-checked my inbox. Nothing. No invite. No itinerary. I searched the family group chat, Ellison Legacy Voyagers. The name alone made my skin crawl. I used to be in that thread. Graham added me back when we first married. Then one day, I noticed I just wasn't. No message, no warning, just gone. Like a typo someone quietly deleted. I sat there for a moment, not moving, not thinking. The stillness wasn't panic. It was confirmation. The kind of quiet that comes when your body accepts something your heart isn't ready for. This wasn't an oversight. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. At noon, while rinsing out a glass, my phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. Or rather, one not meant for me. It was a screenshot from their private planning thread. A photo of the yacht's guest list. There it was, Elaine Foster crossed out in red. And next to it, Chloe Hart confirmed. Followed by a voice note. Vanessa's voice light and sugary. Well, at least the energy on board won't be so tight this year. I listened to it twice. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. Every syllable. That night over dinner, I waited for the moment. Graham was scrolling through market alerts while cutting into overcooked salmon. I kept my voice neutral. "Did you know your family's planning another yacht trip?" He looked up, blinking. "Yeah, I think Mom mentioned something. They're still working out the list." I tilted my head slightly. "Am I on it?" He frowned like he hadn't even thought about it. "Of course. Why wouldn't you be?" I gave a polite nod. "Just checking." He said he'd double-check. I knew he wouldn't. After dinner, I washed the dishes by hand. Each plate, each fork. Slowly. Deliberately. There's a kind of clarity that only comes when you stop pretending. When you realize no amount of effort, no birthday gifts, No showing up early to help set tables. No biting your tongue when someone calls you too serious is ever going to be enough for people who decided you were disposable the moment you didn't serve their version of legacy. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I just opened the drawer in my study, pulled out the manila folder labeled property, and found the yacht's paperwork. There it was. My name, Elaine Foster, listed clearly as co-owner. No conditions, no asterisks. The signature beside mine, Graham's. Added at the request of our accountant for estate simplification. I hadn't thought twice at the time. I was in love. We were a team. Right. That night I opened my journal. I wrote only one sentence. Let them keep talking. I'll bring the documents. The next morning I received a message from Vanessa. Breezy, overly friendly, dressed up in faux empathy. Hey, Elaine. Realized we may have forgotten to reserve a spot for you this year. Totally slipped through the cracks. Things booked up so fast. But hope we can catch up soon after I read it once. Then again. Then set it down. No apology. No offer to fix it. Just a passive brush-off wrapped in exclamation points. A few hours later, I got an email from the charter company. Subject line cancellation confirmation. My cabin. Released. Requested 3 days ago. By name. The requester, Vanessa Ellison. There was no ambiguity. No confusion. She didn't forget me. She removed me. That was the moment the stillness turned to steel. I printed the email, filed it, right next to the ownership contract. Then I sat down and opened a blank document titled Things She's Done That I Let Slide. The list poured out, forgot to copy me on the bridal shower planning emails, left me off the Christmas dinner RSVP, scheduled brunch the same weekend she told me she'd be out of town, claimed my idea for a fundraiser as her own on Instagram. It wasn't the size of the cuts, it was the accumulation. Paper cuts become hemorrhages when no one acknowledges them. That evening, Graham came home humming to himself. He dropped his keys in the tray by the door and opened a beer without asking how my day was. I waited until he settled in. Your sister texted, I said calmly. He raised an eyebrow. About the trip, she says they forgot to book me a spot. He frowned. That doesn't sound like her. Maybe it's just logistics. I handed him the printed email. She canceled my reservation 3 days ago. Here's the confirmation. He stared at the page and didn't speak. That silence said everything. Later that night, after he retreated to the den for his usual dose of ESPN, I pulled out the folder and added one more printout. A group message screenshot forwarded to me by accident. Vanessa texting someone named Kim. Don't worry, she's not coming. I handled it. I highlighted that sentence. She handled it. I didn't feel rage. I felt ready. The yacht trip was 2 weeks away, and I had just begun packing, not swimsuits, receipts. I didn't pack like someone preparing for a vacation. I packed like someone gathering evidence. I laid everything out on the bed, not dresses and shoes, but documents, clean printouts of every email message and receipt. The cabin cancellation confirmation, the yacht ownership contract, the group chat screenshot with my name crossed out, Vanessa's voice note transcribed and highlighted. Each one slipped into a plastic sleeve, then into the manila folder that now felt heavier than any suitcase. I didn't tell Graham right away. What would be the point? He wasn't the kind of man who saw things clearly until they were illuminated in legal ink. I let him watch baseball. I let him sip wine in the den and pretend we were still part of something whole. That weekend, while he polished the car and checked the sprinklers like nothing was cracking beneath us, I drove to the marina. Alone. I asked to speak with the yacht manager, Ronald. We'd met once briefly when I signed the final ownership papers. He didn't recognize me at first, which was fine. I didn't need recognition. I needed clarity. Can you confirm, I asked calmly, who is listed as the legal owner of the Marlowe? He tapped at his screen, clicked through a few files, then looked up. Elaine Foster and Graham Foster. Equal shares. Has that changed recently? No, ma'am. Still current. I nodded. And can you confirm if any guest manifests have been submitted by someone other than an owner? His brow furrowed. Technically, no one but an owner should be assigning cabins or altering guest lists. But, he trailed off. But, he pulled up a PDF. This one was submitted by Ms. Vanessa Ellison, listed under family representative. I didn't react. I just asked for a copy. By Monday, I had it printed, signed, and added to the folder. I didn't confront Vanessa. I didn't call or text. That would have given her power. Instead, I made a quiet decision. I would board that yacht. Not as a guest, as an owner. Not because I needed their approval, but because I needed to remind myself I hadn't imagined the value I brought to the table. And if their story didn't have room for me, I'd bring my version. I waited until the day before departure. Graham was folding his clothes mindlessly, chatting about dinner reservations in the city for the weekend. I stood in the doorway watching him tuck his cufflinks into their leather case. "You're not going on the trip?" I asked. He paused. "I thought maybe we'd just enjoy a quiet weekend." After the way things were handled, his voice trailed off. He hadn't picked a side, not really. He'd just floated to the quietest part of the current. "I'm going," I said. Calm. Final. "I have my paperwork." He blinked. "Elaine." "I don't know if that's a good idea." I tilted my head. "Why not? I paid for the damn boat, Graham." "Yes, but what?" "It might upset your sister. Ruin the performance." He said nothing. And in that, nothing, I heard everything. The next morning, I dressed simply navy dress, a clean neckline, and neutral flats. Hair pinned back. No dramatic jewelry. This wasn't a show. This was a statement. I called a car. I didn't want to arrive with Graham. I wanted to arrive alone. Intact. As for myself, the marina was quiet when I got there. That early the sunlight hadn't fully broken through the haze, and the water looked like slate. I rolled my suitcase behind me. Not a beach bag, no floppy hat, just a slim carry-on and the folder tucked inside. I saw them before they saw me. Vanessa standing at the edge of the dock in her white jumpsuit, hair styled into waves too perfect to be natural. Lucas was beside her, laughing with another couple I didn't recognize. Chloe was already on board, posing for a selfie. Graham was there too, farther back, hands in his pockets, looking anywhere but at me. When Vanessa spotted me, her smile twitched, just slightly, enough for me to see the machinery behind it falter. I walked past them without a word. No greetings, no eye contact. As I reached the yacht's base, a tall staff member in uniform stepped forward. "Good morning, Miss Foster," he said, voice clear and firm. "Welcome aboard. We've been waiting for your clearance to begin boarding." Vanessa turned sharply, her mouth opened just a breath, but no words came out. I gave a small nod to the crew member. "Proceed." I stepped aboard. My heels clicked once against the deck. Then silence. I stood near the railing looking out at the sea, steady, calm, and utterly indifferent. The kind of silence I could trust. The kind that didn't pretend. A few minutes later, the other guests began to trickle aboard. I didn't move. I didn't try to integrate. I wasn't there to belong. I was there to exist. Fully, truthfully. And that was enough. I could feel their eyes, Vanessa's especially. Calculating. Trying to find the angle. Trying to assess how she'd lost control of a script she'd rehearsed so perfectly. She'd counted on silence. On my politeness. My absence. She hadn't prepared for the presence, especially not mine. I sat on a bench along the portside lounge legs, crossed folder on my lap. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Its weight was enough. A crew member brought me lemon water. No one else approached. Graham stood in the upper salon saying something to Lucas. He glanced down at me. I didn't blink. The engines began to hum. The yacht slipped away from the dock like nothing had happened, like we were all just one happy legacy family off to sea. But something had shifted. I could feel it in the way voices didn't rise, in the way Vanessa rearranged place cards on the dinner table, even though no one had asked her to, in the way she kept glancing over her shoulder, waiting For what, I didn't know. Or maybe I did. She was waiting for me to react, to explode, to give her a story she could control. But I had no plans to react. I only planned to document, to watch, to occupy space, and let the truth do the rest. Dinner that evening was designed to impress. Not delight, not nourish, impress. The long teak table stretched down the center of the main salon, dressed in white linen and tall glass cylinders filled with eucalyptus and seagrass. The place cards were calligraphed overly ornate. I found mine at the far end, near the railing away from the lighting and the cameras Vanessa had so carefully positioned. That was fine. I wasn't here to be lit. I was here to see in the dark. People milled around in linen and soft laughter, sipping Prosecco, complimenting the timeless elegance of the tablescape like they hadn't all seen the same Pinterest board last season. Vanessa fluttered between guests, her laugh light, but her eyes on fire, scanning, calculating, still trying to re-anchor herself after I boarded. She hadn't said a word to me, not even a clipped hello. I didn't mind. Her silence was its confession. Jenna Reyes, an old friend of mine and a freelance journalist who joined the trip as Lucas's business guest, slid onto the bench beside me just before the appetizers arrived. "You know," she said softly, "the energy on this boat is immaculate." I glanced at her sideways. Immaculate. She smirked. "I meant the tension. It's humming, like static just before a lightning strike." She tapped her phone. "Vanessa's going live in 2 minutes. Instagram, pre-toast moment." I didn't ask how she knew. Jenna knew everything before it happened. That was her job. "You think she'll mention me?" I said flatly. Jenna raised an eyebrow. "She'll either rewrite you out of existence or try to claim you by association. Depends on whether she's desperate or arrogant tonight." I didn't respond, because I already knew which it would be. Right on cue, Vanessa stepped into the upper salon, phone angled high, catching the best of the late sun on her left cheek. "Hi, everyone!" She beamed, "just wanted to share a slice of our little family tradition." Her tone was syrupy, measured, the kind of smile that's glued to the bone. There's something about being on the open water that reminds you where you come from and who your people are. Family, legacy, loyalty. I almost laughed at that last word. Loyalty. From a woman who called a private company to have me removed from my boat. But I didn't laugh. I watched. She kept speaking. "The guests we have this year, they just get it, you know. They know what it means to carry on something bigger than themselves. To add to our legacy, not subtract from it." I heard Jenna suck in a short breath beside me. "She went there," she muttered. But I wasn't angry. I was waiting, and the universe delivered. Because just as Vanessa turned her face slightly to show off the glint of the yacht behind her, a crew member, the same one who welcomed me earlier, walked by behind her, unaware she was live. Or maybe very aware. He said clearly in his professional but audible tone, "Glad to have you aboard again, Miss Elaine, the owner," and kept walking. Vanessa's face didn't move for half a second. Then it twitched, just a flicker, like a fault line forming under perfect marble. She tried to recover. "And, yes, our whole family is here," she said quickly, tapping at her screen. But it was too late. The comment section had already detonated. I didn't need to see it. Jenna did. "Oh, girl," she whispered, tilting her screen toward me. "It's blowing up." Comments flooded in. "Wait. She's the owner. Why wasn't she in the first shot?" That smile cracked like glass. "Tell us more." "Miss Elaine, the owner is here." Vanessa ended the stream abruptly. The silence that followed wasn't from embarrassment. It was from revelation. Her performance had backfired, and the audience didn't believe her anymore. 10 minutes later, she found me, alone on the port side deck, watching the sea turn dark with evening light. "You planned that," she hissed. I didn't turn. "Planned what?" "That little scene. The crew, the timing, the live mic." "You think I'm stupid?" I sipped my water. "No, I think you're too used to people staying quiet. You don't belong here. I finally turned. That's the thing, Vanessa. I don't need to belong. I bought my place. She blinked at that. Just once. And then walked away. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Because the moment she tried to erase me, it was the moment I stopped needing her approval. I returned to my cabin later that night and laid the folder on the bed. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Just resting my palm on it reminded me that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. I had facts signed and sealed. Meanwhile, the rest of the yacht moved on like nothing had happened. Vanessa hosted dessert. Lucas poured wine. Graham sat near the bar, quiet, unreadable. But the room had changed. I could feel it. So could they. There were fewer laughs, more glances. People weren't sure which version of the story to believe, hers or mine, but that would change soon, because I wasn't done. Not yet. Dinner was already halfway through when I made my move. I waited. Not because I was unsure, but because timing is everything. Vanessa had just finished her second toast of the evening, something about resilience in tradition, a phrase that sounded like it came straight off a scented candle. The candles flickered across the table. The gold-rimmed plates had just been cleared. Dessert was being plated vanilla panna cotta, of course, and the staff moved with a grace that made everything feel curated, polished, pristine. I didn't stand up right away. I let her finish. Let her smile. Let her eyes sweep the table like a queen assessing her court. And just when the room began to exhale, ready to clink glasses again, I stood. No announcement, no fork clinking, just my voice. I'd like to contribute something to this conversation about legacy, I said evenly. Silence rolled in fast. The air tightened. Vanessa froze. Her spoon paused midair. Graham turned his expression unreadable. I reached down, pulled a folder from my bag, and slid a single page onto the center of the table. Not dramatically, just directly. It was a transcript, dated 2 weeks ago, a Zoom call between Vanessa and the Preston family's legal consultant. I tapped a highlighted sentence near the bottom. She's not blood. She shouldn't own a family asset. I didn't need to explain it. Everyone at the table could read. A pause. A breath. Margaret, my mother-in-law, blinked slowly. Lucas set down his wine. A cousin let out a low, "Oh." I placed a second document on the table. This one is thicker. Signed. Stamped. This, I said quietly, is the original purchase agreement for the yacht. Initial payment made by Elaine Foster, legal co-owner. No transfer. No trust. No loophole. Graham leaned forward, eyes wide. Wait. You funded it? I built the company that bought it, I said. I signed every line. Your name was added for estate simplification. You remember, don't you? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Vanessa for once didn't interrupt. Her silence was louder than any outburst. I'm not bringing this up for drama, I said, meeting their eyes. I'm bringing it up because I'm tired of being spoken about in rooms I'm standing next to. I'm tired of being treated like a guest on something I built like a favor, a formality, a footnote. Of course, tried to diffuse. Maybe this isn't the time, Elaine. No, said a voice from the far end of the table. It was Harold, a cousin who rarely spoke. I think it's exactly the time. A few others nodded, murmured. Eyes darted, shifting. Vanessa finally spoke. I was protecting the family. I didn't think. No, I cut in. You didn't. You thought I'd stay quiet. Again. I looked at Graham. You let her. You watched it happen. He didn't deny it. I took a breath. I let a lot of things slide. The unreturned calls, the forgotten invitations, the accidental seating arrangements, the speeches where I was thanked for supporting things I created. But this was deliberate. Silence. Heavy. Dense. I gathered the papers slowly, placed them back in the folder. Neat. Controlled. Then before I left the table, I looked at Vanessa, not with anger, but with precision. You can keep your version of the story, but not on top of my name. And then I walked away. I didn't storm off. I didn't slam a door. I just left the room the way I entered with full control. Later that night, I sat alone on the aft deck, a blanket over my legs, and the sea folding in softly around the hull. The stars were sharp. The air smelled clean like salt and steel, and the beginning of something new. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, seen. Behind me, the deck doors slid open. Footsteps. Then Graham. He didn't sit immediately, just stood arms crossed watching the water. I didn't know she said that, he said finally. His voice sounded small, almost fragile. The thing about not being blood. I didn't answer. I should have spoken up, he added. I nodded. Not as forgiveness, just acknowledgement. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I kept peace, it would sort itself out. It didn't. He nodded again. No, it didn't. And for the first time in a very long time, we both sat in silence. Not avoidance, just truth. That night, I didn't dream. I didn't need to. I had already lived through the part where you get erased. And now I was writing what came after. The morning after the dinner felt strangely quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the hollow kind, the kind that follows something irreversible. The air on the yacht was different. I noticed it in the way people passed me without the same forced smiles, in how no one brought up the night before, but no one dared pretend it hadn't happened either. The crew still moved as they always did, precise, polite, invisible, but the guests, they were listening now, and watching. I sat in the lounge early, just me, a black coffee, and my folder resting beside me like a co-pilot. Jenna stopped by, said nothing, just offered me a fresh croissant and a look that women give each other when something big has shifted and doesn't need to be named. Around mid-morning, Margaret came over, my mother-in-law, the matriarch. She didn't sit. She didn't even greet me at first. She just stood there holding a linen napkin folded too tightly in her hands. I didn't see it before she said finally. Her voice wasn't soft, it was brittle, like someone trying to sound strong while their reality crumbles underneath. Now I do. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That was her apology, the only one I would get. And somehow, it was enough. Later by the breakfast bar, Maddie Graham's younger cousin lingered too long over the fruit. She finally turned and said, "We should have spoken up. A long time ago." I nodded. She reached for a spoon, paused, then added, "It was easier not to notice when Vanessa made it so pretty." Then she walked away. No banners were waving, no dramatic declarations, just slow shifts. A plate was set a little closer to me. A chair pulled out before I got there. A hand offering coffee instead of reaching past me for it. And then came the message that changed everything. My phone buzzed around 11:30. The name on the screen stopped me cold. Ronald's office, the marina. I stepped out to the lower deck to take it. "Mrs. Foster," his assistant said, her tone steady, deliberate. "I wanted to confirm something you requested." "Yes. We reviewed the ownership agreement as you asked. After consulting legal, we can affirm that while Graham Foster's name appears on the co-title for tax filing, the full purchase and initial capital investment were made solely by you." "I know that." "Yes, ma'am. But legally, we're also confirming that due to your sole financial origin of funds and no trust override in place, full operational control reverts to you unless contested and proven otherwise, which it won't be, because the paper trail is airtight." I said nothing. "One more thing," she added. "Mr. Ronald asked me to apologize for even entertaining revisions sent recently by an outside party. They were rejected, but we should have informed you sooner." "Outside party?" I asked. A pause. "Vanessa Ellison." "Of course." I thanked her, hung up, then stared out at the water for a long while. My hands didn't shake, my heart didn't race. I just felt steady, not triumphant, not vindicated, just clear. I already knew it. But now the system did too. Upstairs, I found Jenna in the lounge typing. She looked up. I posted it, she said. I didn't ask what. She turned the screen toward me. It was her column. A new essay. Title: The Woman They Tried to Erase on Silence, Ownership and Standing Your Ground. My name was in the byline. The first paragraph began, "She didn't make a scene. She made a folder. It was sharp, thoughtful, dignified, angry in the right ways and quiet in the right places." Jenna always knew how to aim a sentence like a blade that never missed. "You want me to take it down?" she asked. I shook my head. Leave it. The post had already racked up comments. Most of the women I didn't know. Some names I vaguely remembered from old business events. Others are anonymous but raw. They were writing things like, "This is me. At Thanksgiving. I was the guest at my table. They don't expect us to keep records. But we do." Jenna closed the laptop gently. "It's not revenge," she said. I looked out the window. "No," I said. "It's record keeping." That afternoon, I stood again on the stern of the yacht. The sea was calmer than it had been all week. It reflected light back in long bands of silver. Graham found me there. His hands were in his pockets. His shoulders were slightly hunched. Not the way he normally carried himself, not with the quiet arrogance of a man whose family wrote history while women took photos. But softer, like someone trying and failing to pretend they hadn't let something go too far. "I've been thinking," he said. His voice wasn't rehearsed. That was a start. About what I said, or didn't say, for a long time. I didn't answer. Let the wind fill the space between us. "I didn't protect you," he admitted. "Not the way I should have. Not when it counted." He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at the ocean. "I talked to Ronald," he added. "He walked me through the ownership agreement again. I want to fix it. Have it transferred entirely to you. Formally." I turned to him finally. Looked him dead in the eyes. "This was never about a title, Graham. It was about being seen." He nodded. Slowly. Like it hurt to agree with something that had always been true. "I know," he said. "I know that now." He didn't ask me to forgive him. He didn't ask me to forget. He just stood there, present, for once. And in that moment, I didn't feel like his wife. I felt like myself. Elaine. Not Mrs. Foster, not the assistant, not the tight energy, just me. And it was enough. I didn't expect her to go quietly. Vanessa was never the type to leave a scene without trying to control the lighting. So when I saw her adjusting her hair on the upper deck phone angled just so I knew exactly what was coming. Redemption by Instagram. She held the camera high. The soft gold glow of the afternoon sun landed perfectly on her left cheek. Her voice floated down before I even saw her lips move. "Hi everyone, just wanted to share a little family update today. We're on the water surrounded by love, laughter, and legacy. You know how much that word means to me. Legacy." I closed my book without a sound. "The people we invite on this trip," she continued, "they're the ones who understand what it means to build something that lasts. Not just in name, but in spirit, in contribution, in loyalty." That word again. I didn't need to speak, because the sea, the timing, and the universe had already decided something far better. Behind her, a crew member walked by, the same tall woman from before. She wasn't trying to interrupt, she was just doing her job, but her timing was cinematic. "Glad to have you aboard again, Miss Elaine, the owner," she said clearly as she passed the camera frame. Vanessa's face stiffened. Not a flinch, a freeze. Like the glitch in a video that makes you hit replay just to be sure you saw it. She tapped her screen, tried to laugh, changed angles. But the moment was done. The comments were pouring in faster than she could blink. "Wait. She's the owner, Vanessa, who don't rewrite history. We're watching live. Elaine, tell your side." Jenna, sitting beside me in the lounge with her laptop, didn't even look up. That's going viral in 3, 2. Vanessa ended the live stream. 10 minutes later, she stormed into the hallway near the dining deck, where I was reviewing charts with the crew. She wasn't loud, but her words hissed. You orchestrated that. I didn't look up. I didn't script a thing. You just got caught talking over your lie. Her breath came fast, controlled but flustered. You think one moment on a live stream changes everything? No, I said. The live stream didn't change the story. It just confirmed it. She stepped closer. You don't belong here. I stood slowly. And yet I am. On paper. In contrast. And now on camera. Her jaw tightened. You want to make this ugly? I leaned in just enough for her to hear. Vanessa. I don't need to make it anything. I'm not performing. I'm present. And that was the end of it. She didn't scream. She didn't curse. She walked away. But this time, I didn't walk after her. Because I didn't need her recognition anymore. The power had already shifted. Later that night during dessert, she gave one last toast. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her. Thank you everyone for making this year so meaningful, she said. It's not just about luxury, it's about legacy. The people who carry our story forward, who protects its values. Her words fell into the room like confetti that didn't quite hit the floor. When she sat down, no one applauded. Instead, I stood. No script, no page, just truth. Legacy. I said quietly, isn't just about inheritance. It's about truth. And the receipts that back it up. And then I sat down. No dramatics. Just a simple sentence and a weight that none of them could shake off. The room didn't erupt. It just exhaled. Not everyone understood what just happened. But everyone felt it. And that was enough. By the next day, the air on the yacht wasn't just different. It was thinned, diluted. Vanessa didn't make her usual morning rounds. She didn't appear for breakfast. No Instagram videos, no impromptu group photos. The queen bee had lost her hive, and everyone felt it. But I wasn't celebrating. I was organizing. After a brief conversation with Ronald's office, I asked the crew to print one final document and deliver it to me in a sealed envelope. The timing was intentional. At dinner that evening, everyone returned to the table like they weren't carrying the weight of the last 48 hours. Vanessa showed up late, dressed in green silk and restraint. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She raised a glass and began. Tonight is about unity. About learning, about evolving as a family. I didn't let her finish. I stood again. Not dramatically, just intentionally. I'd like to clarify something for everyone here, I said. My voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. The silence gave me a stage. From my folder, I pulled out the newly printed document, the one that arrived less than an hour ago from the Marina office, notarized and signed. This, I said, laying it flat on the table, is the legal confirmation from the Port Authority and the Charter Office affirming that I am the sole financial originator, legal owner, and binding decision-maker of the Marlowe. A wave of tension rolled through the room like thunder under silk. Vanessa's hand clenched around her wineglass. Lucas stared. Graham said nothing, but didn't look surprised. I wasn't finished. This is not a flex, I continued. It's a correction. For years, I let people speak for me. I let them write the story of this boat, this family, and my role in it without asking for a copy of the script. I stayed quiet. I let things slide. And in doing so, I allowed a version of myself to be erased. I looked straight at Vanessa. Until now. No one moved. Then quietly from across the table, Harold spoke again. I always wondered why you weren't in the family newsletter photos. Guess I have my answer. Aunt Trudy, who never liked confrontation, cleared her throat. I think we all saw it. We just let it happen. Margaret closed her eyes and exhaled. And then Graham finally stood. I want to add something, he said, voice more certain than I'd heard it in months. Elaine isn't just the owner on paper. She's the reason we're even afloat. This yacht, this legacy we toast to, she built it. And I let my silence speak louder than it should have. That landed heavier than anything I said, and Vanessa knew it. She stood suddenly. You've made your point. But I wasn't finished. I haven't, I said, pulling one last slip of paper from the folder. A transcript. From a recent internal email. Vanessa had tried to file for ownership reallocation through a family trust she didn't have legal standing in. I didn't need to explain it. I just laid it down. You didn't just erase me from the guest list, I said. You tried to erase me from the title. Her face drained of color. Lucas leaned back wide-eyed. Is that true? She didn't answer, but the silence did. And then without a word she turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her like punctuation. For a moment no one spoke, not even Jenna. Then slowly, like dawn through fog, people began to nod. Not all, but enough. I didn't need applause. I just needed the room to stop pretending. And it had. That night back in my cabin I placed the folder in the drawer. Not locked, just resting. Like something that had finally done its job. And when I turned off the lamp, I didn't lie awake replaying it all in my head. Because the truth doesn't need rehearsal. It just needs to be told. The morning after was softer than I expected. The kind of softness that doesn't come from relief, but from release. There was no dramatic shift, no music swelling in the background. Just the subtle rearrangement of air, the kind that follows a truth finally spoken out loud. I woke up early. The light hadn't reached the deck yet, and the sea outside my window was barely breathing. For the first time on this trip, I wasn't dreading the dining room. I wasn't watching for side glances, or wondering if I'd be cropped out of a photo. I got dressed slowly. No makeup, just a light sweater, my notebook tucked under one arm. I didn't need armor anymore. I wasn't defending my place. I was occupying it. When I entered the lounge, Jenna was already there typing on her laptop with her usual surgical grace. She didn't say good morning, just looked up with a knowing smile and slid a warm cup of coffee toward me. I nodded, sat down and opened my notebook. No words yet, just blank pages. And somehow that felt right. The others trickled in, one by one, slower than usual, the kind of slow that comes after reflection, not sleep. Maddie passed by me on the way to the buffet. That speech she said under her breath was the most honest thing that's happened at one of these dinners in years. Margaret approached a few minutes later. She didn't sit beside me. She placed a small saucer with lemon and honey down in front of my cup, like she used to do before the frost set in. She didn't say a word, but her eyes lingered. Not sharp, not judging, just present. It was more than I expected, and enough for now. The surprise came mid-morning when I stepped out for air and found Chloe, yes, that Chloe, standing at the edge of the railing, sunglasses off, arms crossed tight. When she saw me, she hesitated, but didn't walk away. "I'm sorry," she said. I blinked. For what? She looked out over the water, for being part of the performance. "I didn't know half the things you revealed last night. I don't know what I thought. I let Vanessa shape the whole narrative. I didn't interrupt. Let her keep going. I guess I assumed people with money always had power. I never realized how often it gets taken from the women who earn it." That stopped me. For a second, I just watched her. "Thank you," I said, and meant it. Then she did something I never saw coming. She reached into her tote, pulled out a folded paper and handed it to me. "It's the guest list," she said. From her laptop. The one she edited 3 times before finalizing. "Your name was there." Then it wasn't. I unfolded the page. My name. Typed, then deleted, then replaced with hers. I folded it again and tucked it into my notebook. "Thank you," I repeated. After she left, I sat alone for a while. Not sad, just still. I realized then that power doesn't always come from declarations. Sometimes it comes from the quiet fact that you no longer need to explain yourself, that the proof is finally out there, and it speaks louder than your voice ever could. That evening, after most guests had settled into wine and the low hum of conversation, Graham found me on the lower deck. He sat beside me, close but not intrusive. We didn't talk for a few minutes, just watched the horizon pull itself slowly backward. I keep replaying everything he said finally. Not just this week. Years. I didn't stop him. I saw it, he continued. The way they minimized you, made you small. I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere, that if I stayed neutral I was protecting peace. That wasn't peace, I said. No, he admitted. It was compliance, dressed up in politeness. Another long silence. I should have stood beside you sooner. You still didn't stop her from trying to take it. He nodded. And I'll regret that. Probably forever. He turned to face me. But if there's still a way to be better now, not just say better, but do better, I'll take it, even if it's late. I looked at him, really looked. This wasn't the man who ignored me during dinners, who shrugged off Vanessa's digs as just her way. This was someone unraveling the version of himself he had been and trying to become someone else. I didn't forgive him, not right away, but I heard him. And sometimes that's the beginning. That night, I didn't sit in the corner of the dining room. I sat in the center. Not by invitation, but by right. The morning after felt different. Not lighter, not quieter, but aligned. I didn't wake up wondering what room I'd be allowed into. I didn't dress for a battle. I just got up, made coffee, sat at the window overlooking the sea as it peeled back like silk under the rising sun. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone my presence. Graham had left early off to some crew breakfast with Lucas, probably to patch up whatever illusion of structure they still hoped to salvage. Jenna had left a note outside my door. A copy of her article, now published, syndicated, and already gaining traction online. You don't have to repost it, she'd written in her looping cursive, but people are reading, and they're seeing you. I folded the paper gently and slid it into the folder that had now become more than evidence. It was my mirror. A quiet reminder of what I refused to forget ever again. Just after noon, there was a soft knock at my door. Not tentative, not urgent, just intentional. I opened it to find someone I hadn't expected. Maya, Vanessa's niece, barely 23, soft-spoken, always in the background. The kind of young woman who watched more than she spoke and remembered things people didn't think she noticed. She looked nervous. I hope this isn't weird, she said. I know we've never really talked much. I stepped aside. It's not weird. Come in. She didn't sit right away, just looked around the room like it belonged to a version of adulthood she wasn't sure she could claim yet. I read the article, she said quietly. The one Jenna wrote. I waited. And I watched the live stream, she added. Not the polished part. The one where they called you the owner. The way you didn't react. You just existed, like you knew. I nodded slowly. Because I did. She sat then finally. I think I've spent most of my life learning how to be invisible, she said. At family dinners, at holidays. Even now in grad school, I let louder voices speak for me. I always told myself that's how strong women survive, by adapting, staying useful, never taking up too much space. My chest tightened. She wasn't telling me about herself. She was telling me about the younger version of me, and I had long stopped mourning. She reached into her bag and pulled out a printed application. I'm applying for a mentorship program, she said. Female founders. But I don't have anyone in the family who's built something, not from scratch, except you. I took the papers gently, scanned the front page. Her essay was raw, honest, brilliant. I don't need a letter, she said quickly. Just, would you look at it? Tell me where it stumbles. I nodded. But what I wanted to say was, you didn't stumble. You arrived. She left 20 minutes later, lighter than when she arrived. And me. I stayed at the window a little longer, thinking about what legacy means. Not blood, not a ceremony, but truth passed forward with care. Later that afternoon, Graham returned. He didn't say much, just placed a glass of water next to me and stood by the open window. I talked to Ronald, he said. He's drafting the final transfer paperwork. Full ownership. All yours. Officially. I looked at him. Why now? He took a breath. Because you don't need it. But you deserve to never question it again. And then he added something I wasn't prepared for. You taught me something this week, Elaine. What's that? That silence is not the absence of power. It's the container for it. Until someone's finally ready to speak. I didn't smile. But I let the words land where they needed to. And they stayed. That evening, I hosted something simple, not a dinner. Just a quiet gathering on the aft deck. No place cards, no speeches. Just fresh strawberries, a bottle of wine, and chairs pulled into a circle without hierarchy. Jenna brought lemon bars. Maya sat beside me. Chloe passed around napkins without needing to be told. Not everyone came. But the ones who did, they belonged. Not because of their last name, but because of their character. And that I realized is the only kind of legacy worth protecting. The house welcomed me back like it had been waiting in stillness. Same creaky spot near the pantry. Same stack of half-read magazines by the kitchen counter. But it didn't feel like coming home to something I'd missed. It felt like stepping back into a life I'd rewritten without anyone's permission. I didn't unpack right away. I left the suitcase by the door for 3 days. Not out of avoidance, but as a quiet reminder, there are things you don't rush anymore when you've learned how to wait for yourself. Each morning, I brewed coffee in silence, not searching for notifications, not scrolling for updates, just sitting by the window watching how the light moved across the floorboards as if it had its quiet routine. Graham came back the second evening. No fanfare, no explanations, just a man carrying his stillness. He found me in the dining room polishing the table, not because it was dusty, but because it had become mine again. Every scratch, every knot in the wood now meant something else. He stood at the edge of the room, unsure. I didn't know what to say when I walked in, he admitted. You just did, I replied. He set down a small box on the table. Inside it was the finalized document. Transfer of full ownership. He didn't say, I hope this makes things right. He didn't ask for reassurance. He just placed the proof where words used to fail. And I thanked him. Not out loud. Just with a look that said, this is what acknowledgement feels like. Later that week, I found something buried in the hallway drawer, a small, folded piece of yellowed paper, stuck between old bills and takeout menus. My father's handwriting. Neat, square, intentional. It read, don't fight for a seat. Build your table. I sat on the floor back against the cabinet, paper in hand. He had written that for me once after a particularly rough Thanksgiving years ago, the kind where I washed every dish and still got asked who I was related to. I never knew I had kept it, but maybe the part of me that was still fighting to belong knew better. The next morning I hosted brunch. Not for tradition, not for image, for connection. The people who came weren't just family by blood. Jenna, Chloe, Maya. Even Ronald's wife brought fresh jam and stayed longer than she meant to. Graham poured the coffee. Quietly. Carefully. We didn't toast. We didn't make a speech. We just passed bread and poured honey and talked like people who had learned not to fill silence with performance. Afterward, while cleaning up, Maya approached me with a quiet question. Do you think it's okay to walk away from a family that doesn't see you? I didn't answer right away. Then I said, you don't have to walk away, but you can stop shrinking to fit their picture. That night I sat alone at the head of the table, not because I needed to, but because I could. I thought about everything that had happened, the whispers, the exclusions, the careful cuts, and I realized they didn't define me. They defined them. I had just stopped agreeing to be part of the illusion. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need applause. I just needed air, and my name, and a seat no one could pull out from under me again. And now, I have it. So here's what I want to ask you, you listening right now. Have you ever been made to feel like a guest in your own life? Have you ever dimmed your light to stay included, only to realize they never planned to hand you a real place at the table? Then this story isn't just mine, it's yours too. Drop a comment, share your moment, or just type 1 if this hit something real in you. And if it did, if it helped you breathe easier, stand taller, remember who you are, I hope you'll stay. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.